Okay, so this is your assignment and it is in a Google Doc form. So you will be going through and just entering your answers that way. I told you before I'm not going to have you actually try to type out Punnett squares because it's going to be too complicated, but I would suggest having a piece of paper next to you so that you can work through the problems. As I go through them, I'm going to do the Punnett squares as well so that you can see what it should look like and why I'm getting the answers that I'm getting. So we're going to start off with this assignment kind of like we did yesterday. And you're telling me, is it heterozygous or homozygous? Remember, if they're two different letters, that's heterozygous. If they're both the same case, both upper or both lowercase, that is homozygous. So my first one here, I'm going to put HE. Two lowercase f's is HO. Two uppercase g's is HO. Two uppercase h's is HO. Uppercase I, lowercase I is hetero. Uppercase j, lowercase j is hetero. Two lowercase k's, homozygous. Uppercase L, lowercase l is heterozygous. For each genotype, determine the phenotype. So we're talking about complete dominance, so as long as you have one capital letter, you're going to exhibit the dominant trait. In order to show the recessive trait, you have to have two lowercase letters. Purple flowers are dominant to white flowers. So if it's capital, this is dominant, that's going to be my big P. White flowers are going to be the little P. So this one's purple. This one is going to be purple as well. Two lowercase ones. Is white. Brown eyes are dominant to blue eyes. So my first one's going to be brown. My second one is going to be brown. My third one will be blue. Now we're going opposite of what we just did. So for each phenotype, you're going to list the genotypes. Straight hair is dominant to curly hair. So for this one, I know S's are difficult to tell whenever you're writing something out, so I'm going to use the letter H to represent my hair types. So if straight is dominant, be this. If it's heterozygous, it's going to be one of each. Curly hair is going to be two lowercase ones. Pointed heads are dominant to round heads. I'll just stick with the letter H again. Heterozygous, homozygous, recessive is going to be round. And now we're going to get into a couple of crosses here. So again, because you guys are learning online, I'm not having you work out the Punnett squares. I'm asking you to tell me the genotypic and phenotypic ratio. So you're not putting your work on here, but you're going to need to do the work in order to get the right answers. Unless you're really good at statistics and stuff, percentages, probability. Okay, so for A, I have a heterozygous on top and a homozygous recessive on the side. Here's my cross right there. Genotypic ratio starts with homozygous dominant, so we do not have any that have two capital R's. Heterozygous, we have two of those, and homozygous recessive, we have two of those. Phenotypic ratio, what it looks like. So dominant is going to be round, wrinkled is going to be recessive. So if you have a round seed, that is going to be anyone who has at least one capital letter. So I have two who have a capital letter, so those two are going to be round. Two that do not, those two are going to be wrinkled. That is it. So you guys are just showing me this ratio part here. For our next one, we are crossing to heterozygous. And we're going to have a different ratio this time. Our genotypic ratio, we start with homozygous dominant, we have 1. Heterozygous, we have 2. Homozygous recessive, we have 1. Phenotypic ratio. As long as you have one capital R, it's going to be round. So if I look at that, I have 3 here, here, and here. And 1 that's going to be wrinkled. Let's see, what's our next problem? So I have homozygous dominant mixed with a heterozygous. Okay, genotypic ratio. We start with homozygous dominant. I have 2 of those. Heterozygous is next. They're down here at the bottom, 2 of those. I have no homozygous recessive. Phenotypic ratio, we're looking for round. Anybody who has at least 1 capital R is going to be round, and that is every single one of them has at least 1 capital R. So 4 to 0 is my phenotypic ratio. And now we're going to do tall plants are dominant to short plants. So we're switching it up a little bit here. Homozygous dominant is first. I have none of those. Heterozygous, all 4, no recessives. Phenotypic ratio, as long as it has 1 capital T, it's going to be tall. So that is 4 to 0. And then in my next cross, I'm going to cross the heterozygous form of it. Capital T, lowercase t, capital T, lowercase. I said it right, I just didn't write it right. Erase that part there so I don't get it confused. Capital T, lowercase t. Okay. Genotypic ratio, we start with the dominant. I have 1. For heterozygous, I have 2. Recessive, I have 1. Phenotypic ratio. I have 3 who are going to have the dominant trait, 1 who will have the recessive trait. For the following questions, you need only to show the genotype for the cross. The first one is done for you as an example. So you're crossing a heterozygous plant with a homozygous dominant plant. So heterozygous would be 1 of each. With a homozygous dominant, that would be 2 capital T's. Cross a homozygous recessive plant. So if it's recessive, that's going to be 2 lowercase. With a homozygous dominant plant. If it's dominant, that's going to be capital. Cross a homozygous recessive plant with a homozygous recessive plant. Homozygous means it's the same. Recessive is going to make it lowercase. And we've only got these last 2 problems to do. For the next 2 problems, purple is dominant to white. Use the letter R, or lowercase r, to indicate your cross. The first one is done for you. Cross a white flower with a white flower. So white is recessive. So that means in order to exhibit the recessive trait, you're going to have 2 lowercase r's. So here's my first white flower. Here's my second white flower. Cross a white flower with a flower that is heterozygous for the trait. So white is going to be recessive, heterozygous. Cross 2 purple flowers that are true bred. True breeding means that they come from a pure line, so any time that it is going to self-pollinate, it is going to exhibit that trait. True breeding also means that they are not heterozygous. So there we have it. Alrighty guys, that's it for this particular assignment. I'll check in with you soon.